here in Dallas, Texas, and I'll be co-hosting with Chichi. I'm a member of our RCCG House on the Rock. Thank you and welcome.
All right, and I am your MC for the day. My name is Edna Chichi Njoku. I am a member of Freedom Hall Chapel, Lansing, Michigan. And again, I am grateful for the opportunity to and humbled to be speaking with our amazing panelists. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. Thank you for all those who are joining us online and sharing. Please share this video so that we can continue to have the important conversation about the topic, I Can't Breathe, and we can help our local businesses, local churches, local people, and local youth especially to understand the position of the church at this time. Thank you very much. I'm getting some information here. We are joined on this panel with Pastor James Fadell. He's the Special Assistant to the General Overseer of RCCG. He's the Chairman of RCCG North American Operations. Welcome, Daddy Fadell.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'd also like to welcome Pastor Gandhi Olaye. He is our Regional Pastor and Senior Pastor of RCCG Jesus House, DC. Welcome, Pastor Gandhi. We can't hear you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There we go. All right. We also like to welcome Pastor Mrs. Fumi Obilana. She's the Regional Pastor and Senior Pastor of RCCG Living Spring. Welcome, Mommy.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome finally Pastor Bayo Faduba. He is our Provisional Pastor and Senior Pastor, RCCG Dominion Chapel, Houston, Texas. Thank you and welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
All right, we're going to go quickly into I Can't Breathe. I Can't Breathe was something that the church, RCCGNA, decided that it was important to put together and speak out in lieu of the death of George Floyd. We're all saddened and our hearts are heavy in America. Most importantly, people would like to know the position of the church. So I am going to introduce our chairman. He will be our speaker for the day on the current stance and his thoughts. Pastor, what are your thoughts on George Floyd's death and the current issues facing the country?
I want to thank everybody for logging in on this Zoom line today to talk on the issue of I Can't Breathe. I want to appreciate my fellow pastors who are online, Pastor G, all the way from Washington, D.C., Pastor Bilana from Philadelphia, Pastor Faduba from Houston, and all others who are joining the MCs. Thank you, God bless you. And I think, it's about time. By now, we are all aware of what has captured the nation's headlines since Memorial Day, May 25th, 2020. The unavoidable yet heinous murder of George Floyd, a Black man, by a police officer, with numerous recording witnesses. On June 3rd, 2020, prosecutors filed a second-degree murder charge against the police officer at the center of George Floyd's case and charged 3 other officers for the first time in American history with aiding and abetting, second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. This delivered a victory to protesters galvanized by a death that has roused racial tensions and unleashed coast-to-coast unrest. The move powerfully punctuated an unprecedented week in modern American history, in which largely peaceful protesters took place in communities of all sizes. They were all rocked by bouts of violence, including deadly attacks on officers, rampant theft, and arson in some places. But there's something I quickly want to say, that racism is still very, very, very much alive in 2020. That much is very clear. It is important to understand that it's been a spiritual and both ancestral stronghold, and it's a significant part of why it still exists. However, we have the weaponry, both in the physical and the spiritual, to pull down these strongholds. but it requires a concerted effort on all our part to abandon silence and complacency. We must proactively exit our comfort zones to bring about the change we all want to see. God bless you, sir. Amen.
Very powerfully said, sir. Please, what is RCCG stand on this racial injustice and the death of George Floyd?
Thank you very much. And I also thank God that we have a lot of pastors who are joining me this afternoon. They're all senior pastors. One thing that we want to be clear is that silence and complacency in the face of others who are suffering is no longer an option. Not only the Black community, but in African churches, in Black American churches. There is only one human race, which makes all of us brothers and sisters. We must all, as a church, as individuals, speak against this bully in defense of ones being victimized. Most importantly, as a church, we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate each other on the issues that we can be proactively be fighting against systematic prejudice, bigotry, and the abuse of power in our communities and in the cities where we are located. We must support those who are already working dedicatedly for the elimination of hostile and oppressive climates. We must call to action those who have been commissioned to act in the interest of the populace. Meet the loud and the angry voices of hate with louder, more reasonable voices. We have a moral responsibility to send an unmistakable message that we will not stand for hate. We will not stand for racism, both as a church, as a community, and as Black people. All human beings are of equal value in the face of God and must be the same in America. The only way to eliminate hatred is to face it head on. And that is the position of the church. It is no longer comfortable for us to sit in an ivory tower and be occupying the comfort zone. There's no longer comfort zone for everybody. We must all, as a church, be involved. And that is our stand. I want other senior pastors to add to this voice their stance in their churches and in the communities that they represent.
I'd like to hand the floor over to Bayo.
All right. Thank you, Chichi. My next question is for Pastor Gandhi Olaoye. Thank you for joining us, Pastor. Today, first of all, I want to ask for your opinion, your personal thoughts on racism in America in 2020 and what has been going on for the last 2 weeks. Over to you, sir.
I know I'm supposed to. Hello. I know I'm supposed to talk about bridging the gap. Do you want me to talk about bridging the gap at this time?
No, I just want to hear your thought first, then I'll give you follow-on questions, sir.
All right. I think for me, what's going on in the past couple of weeks, it's very, very, it's very exciting. It's very challenging, and especially seeing a young generation, most especially in the way they have reacted to this. I believe that some of us, and that includes someone like me, we didn't like what we saw. Like, we've seen this over and over again. And there is a way you see things over and over again that you become desensitized to it. And so I felt that we didn't react to it, especially many of us who have African background and who are my age group, the way we should have. But thank God that the young people mostly stood up and reacted to it the way they should have reacted to it and see it as a grave injustice. You hardly can see a policeman do what they did to Floyd to a white person. And we've seen a lot of these pictures in the past few weeks. We have hardly seen anyone shown about of police brutality in this form or shape to a white person. We've not seen those videos, but we've seen videos of them doing it to the black. So what I can see is that it's a great awakening for the nation at large. It's a great awakening for the Black community. The only challenge I have is that I hope very sincerely that this momentum will not be lost until a lot of these systemic changes are made, against what has been going on for a long time. I feel what just happened with this is that the cup of the policemen was just full, and this is a change that I believe that we will get.
I really do appreciate you for saying that, because we have to, I mean, you said it right. The momentum behind this moment have to continue. Yes. We'll now talk how do we bridge the gap? And I know financial inequality has been one of the points that has been pontificated over the course of the last 2 weeks, that the Black American community or the minority as a whole have been financially kind of backwards and have financial inequality in this whole scheme of this American dream. So what is your position on this, and how do we go forth by bridging the gap using financial power?
Right. Maybe we have to take this situation in a couple of levels and a couple of directions. But because of the limited time, I will not be able to go too much. But I will try to identify the things I feel are fundamental. Number one, we've got to look at it historically, because white people have always been in the position of power, you understand, in this country. And so the policies that has been churned out by the political leaders, even if you look at all the House of Representatives, if you look at the Senate, and a lot of governmental agencies and all of those things have been held by the white people. And so the policies they have put in place over the years, and this dates back to hundreds of years, has been in favor of white people. So when I say it's been in the favor of white people, it means that it has been in the disfavor of Black people. So, for example, you'll find out that the minority funds are hardly available. And like I said, I'm just going to try and touch on it, just a very few points. And even when they try to make a policy that they say, oh, let's favor minorities and let's try to empower minorities, the money that is supposed to be for minorities, they classify white women as part of the minorities. So the whole money does not even go to the minorities, which was something that they brought up to empower the Blacks. But when you see it is white women are part of it. So you find out that a lot of what we call mom and pop shops, how did they start? They started by a white man saying to the white, you will qualify for this funding because you are classified as minority. So they know how to work this thing out. So historically, you'll find out that the process has never favored Black people. So when you look at the funds given out to minorities, it goes to a lot of white women. So the white man uses his wife as a front. So inevitably, the person you're giving the money to is still the white people. And one way or the other, because let me go into another one, project living. A lot of African Americans, they grew up in the projects. And when you grow up in the project, one of the things you'll find out in the project is that a lot of people who work in the project don't have a day job. So when you wake up in the morning and your environment always affects your mindset. So when you wake up in the morning, I'm hearing my echo. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, So what you find out is that when people wake up in the project, they don't see any other person who goes to work at 8 a.m., who is waking up at 6 o'clock to get on the transport and go. So when you go to the project, you find out that between the hours of maybe 6 to 10, there's hardly anybody going to work. So you grow up with that kind of mindset of not seeing the people who are ahead of you. And don't forget, people pick up habits by what they see more than what you say to them. So they grow up like that, not knowing and having a work culture. And that environment, what it does is that it affects them. And so you find out a whole lot of people. Then when we look at the African immigrants, which they're a little bit different. And why do I say that? Most Africans who came here are what we call economic immigrants and educational immigrants. So they came here because things are bad in their country. So they come into this country to find jobs. And when you try to find jobs, one of the jobs you want to really find are the low-hanging jobs, which are most of the time, they are not so much of income. Or you come here to study. And after you finish studying, you find out that maybe you can go back home. So you're trying to look for a job. And so all of these things, we find out that it affects the people. The other thing that affects them, apart from this cultural background, the environment they grew up in, is also education. Many of the African Americans do not want to go to school. The African immigrants are a little bit different, but the people here, they don't want to go to school. They have this mindset that when you finish school, you're going to be holding a whole lot of money. And so when you're holding a whole lot of money, you're going to be paying for the rest of your life. So the funds that are available, which will have given them good education so that they can compete in the marketplace, they do not go there.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
In the interest of time, thank you. Pastor Gandhi Olaoye has identified that part of bridging the gap using financial inequality. Financial inequality cannot be achieved without political equality, and also addressing the issue of education, where you stay at, as part of the reason. All these factors have to be addressed for even talk to the issue of financial inequality.
Let me say this, I will address it in when I because I have the solutions also. I just didn't bring up the problem. I have solutions for it. So
awesome.
When I have the opportunity again, I'll talk about that.
I think it's important to get to the solution. Sorry to interject. To get to the solutions, please, if you are joining us, we have questions on the panel, very interesting questions. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer so that you don't interrupt our panel speakers. Thank you very much. I think the solution is going to be powerful. It's super because there is a way out. The Bible says that we ask and we receive. So if we can asking our leaders to help us with the solution so that our churches begin to have these events that help our communities know more about wealth and about structuring education to better our communities, we're only on the way to a higher place. And then our protests mean more than just coming outside and walking with signs. I'm going to move quickly to Mommy's question. Mommy, we have some questions for you about the home. And we, you know what? I have, our leaders have told me to go back and talk about solutions. Let's talk about the solutions. You have the solutions, sir. Let's quickly talk about that before we go to Mommy's questions. Let's talk a little bit about the solutions that you have that are important for us to hear right now, because we've talked about the problem, the issues, you've listed them. So what are some of the solutions that we have to incorporate as a people, as a church, as individuals that would help us to make these protests become something that will actually last effectively for a while?
All right. I guess that's for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The first thing is education.
Okay.
It's number one, formal education. Most African Americans drop out of school, like I said. They've got to go and stay in school. Do you understand? That is very, very important. The other thing about that is mindset. They've got to break the mindset, because A lot of people believe in a lot of things. They sit down and abuse the white people. They comment on what they have done and all the injustices about slavery and all of those things. I know that those things have happened. But the question is, how do we move on from this place? And one of the things, and how you get into the system, is by formal education. So that is very important, because of lack of education, a lot of them are not employed. And because they are not employed, they do not know what to do. So education gives us information about what is available for us. It makes us to be employable. It gives us access to managerial and executive positions and positions of influence. You cannot represent people when you are not educated. That's number one. Number two, our mindset has to change. And this is where the church comes in. The churches are historically helped a lot of Blacks. That is so important. And so it is important for us to do one thing, for the churches to focus on a lot of mindset of people. Don't let us forget that Martin Luther King and the highly people who started all this civil challenging the white supremacists and all of those things were people who were from the church. The AME is a very good example, American Methodist Episcopal. You find out that they did a lot with education. They broke a lot of mindset. So you find out that a lot of the AME people are very highly educated, and a lot of them are very, very successful entrepreneurs. So the mindset has to be broken. And if we find out even in the Bible, the apostles, they dealt with this issue in the Bible. You understand, about the Jews and the Gentiles. The Jews wanted to resist the Gentiles. The church also has to deal with this issue about letting the people know, especially our Black people, that the white man is not superior. Because the Jews thought they were superior to the Gentiles. But the apostle had to deal with this issue. And Paul, one of the things that Paul said is that, with the Lord in Colossians 3:10, that there is no barbarian, there's no Jew. For God, we are all the same. And God has a reason why he made us Black. That's it. The second education is information. We're in the information age. So things can be available for you and you might not know about it. So information and continuous information must be what the churches must give to the people. It's so important. We must expose our members to the opportunities. I believe churches have to set up business clubs, even at this time, entrepreneurship clubs. We've got to encourage our members to join chambers of commerce, because all we talk about to them is the church. And that is so good that we must do that. But it is one of the greatest assembly, because mindset is what we deal with every day as pastors, to change people's mindset. So we've got to change their mindset, not only about Christ, about God. We've got to change it also in the social, of letting them know, giving them information, creating, because that's where they congregate, that's where they come together. So for them also to join some social clubs, to be part of, because the way we have preached the gospel is like being a member of a golf club. It's a sin. No, that's where businesses are done. That's the thing. A friend of mine, in the history of a golf club in Dallas, he and his brother are the first and the only Black people in a club that has an history of over 100 years. I said, how did you do that? He said they just found out that most Blacks never apply for it. And so a whole lot of things. And the guy today has become the chairman of the Chambers of Commerce for Dallas, that has an economy bigger than Nigeria. It's a Black guy. And by being in that club, exposed him to the opportunities. And now he's in a position of influence. He wants to bring business to Nigeria. But this is possible for us to do also. So we've got to change this one. As pastors, we have to do what they call vision casting for our people. Not only casting visions for them, but guiding them in the implementation of it. And the deep culture of immigration, you understand, we will find out that because we come in here You understand? With a mindset to come and work, to come and get education. The Indians, the Jews, the Asians, when they come here, they are not like that. And the Jews, a lot of information is passed out in their synagogues. And we have churches also. We can pass a lot of information in our churches. That's the thing. The devil has cheated us that poverty is Christianity, but that's not true. You've got to be in the corridors of power to influence things.
So you're saying that we should
Do that. You understand?
Right, sir. So you're saying that we should use the position of the church to actually encourage the discussions of having finance group, encouraging local. I'm part of a BNI, a Business Networking International. BNI brought in $15 million last year, $15 billion all over the world. So I understand the power of being amongst powerful people and talking about business with them that you can bring back to your community. Are you encouraging our leaders and pastors to begin to have those in their churches?
In my church, we have what we call Agai Business Network. It's a network of the businessmen. We have a department that helps people to get jobs. We have that ministry set up to help people to do that. We have a leadership, Daniel Leadership Institute, where we educate our people on the power of this. Because when the people are prepared, they have the confidence to go there and compete in the world. And they are not shy, they are not intimidated. So when the people who migrate also, we've got to educate them. You understand? Because you see the Indians, you see the Chinese, you see the Jews, you see them in all of those positions of influence. And let me say this as I try to close. The thing is that this country is built on lobbying. It's built on lobbying, and lobbying simply means money. To change policies, to change things, to have influence, it is money. And if you are an immigrant and all you're thinking about is how you can eke out of the society, you will never have enough. The reason why the homosexuals and the LGBT, the reason why they have so much powerful thing, their percentage is so small. It's so small, but they've been able to change policies because they give of the money that they have towards this lobby. And that's why you find out that they are changing laws. And the Black community, who is about 10 times the size of the LGBT, they have not been able to change laws into their favor.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's because they don't have the means, the money, because the church has taught us that we are poor people. It's time for us to change that mindset for our people, that no, being a Christian does not mean poverty. In actual fact, it is not, it's antithesis to the gospel for you to be a Christian and be poor. That is not the gospel of our Lord Jesus.
I have a question from someone in the crowd. This question is going to go. Thank you so much, Pastor Gandhi, for that, because I think we will come back and ask a couple of more questions. It's very powerful that we made that. We had a meeting last night, the team. I brought that up on how we can start programs, something like what you're doing, and share that with other churches, because we have a powerful network, RCCG, and it does, and we're not utilizing maybe what you know in our church here in Lansing and in other places. But I'm going to go quickly to Mommy, because the home, it starts from the home. And someone in the group asked a question that I'm going to pose to Mommy right now. And the question reads, how do we sanitize the Nigerian community to see themselves as part of the African American Black community and who are exposed to the same racial discrimination? So somehow when I first came to America, I was told that, hey, you're different. You're from Africa, but these people over here, these are African Americans. You don't want to be hanging with them because, they talk a certain kind of way. They say things a certain kind of way. You don't want to be with them or, in the same place as them. This is from home. This is my own family. So this person has posed a very important question in our chat. And we want to take that to you as our mommy in the panel. Please tell us, how do we begin to change that mindset?
Well, whatever it was that they told you at home, I see as it affected the fact that you are an American. I can see your facial expression. I can see I can see all that. So, this is where we need to talk truth with ourselves as Africans in the American community. whether we like it or not, our children are Americans. In fact, they are Black Americans. I've been here for over 20 years, and in many ways, I probably think more like an American than a Nigerian. I probably feel more at home here because most of my adult life I've spent here. So when I look at my children, I brought them in here. We came here when they were about 7 and 8, if I remember correctly. But for me, this issue of Black Lives Matter is very, very personal. It's personal to me because my children have had, that I know of, I'm sure they have had other instances that they did not share with me. They have had brushes with this kind of, and it is only the grace of God that has helped them. The first instance I know of was a day they told me we were going to the mall. And they came back and
Mom, we can't hear you, Mom.
We can't hear you.
okay.
Oh, there we go. You're back. Oh, there, it's gone again. We can't hear you again.
Unmute your phone. Unmute your, yeah, it's okay
I
now.
did unmute.
Oh, there we go. Now we can hear
Yeah,
you.
it's okay
Everyone
now.
else, please mute your phones as we listen to Mom.
So where did you lose me?
We
Okay. Yeah, I think it's coming from your end. Every time you try to mute everyone, it mutes me. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I said for me, it's very personal. One day, my children went to the mall. I think the older one was 13, the younger one was about 11. And they came back shaking. And I said, what happened? What's going on? The security person at the mall apprehended them and said they had stolen something. Stolen what? I put them in the car. The mall is 5 minutes away from my home. We went to the mall. I said, I need to see that security person. The minute she saw me coming and saw me with those two children, she ran, got into her patrol car and sped off. I went into the mall. I went to the information desk. Now my children told me that they had bought something. She came to them and said, let me see your bag. I think it was just a t-shirt. And she said, oh, you stole this. They gave her the receipt. She saw that receipt and still insisted that they stole the thing. So she took them to the store. The minute the clerk in the store saw them, and she said, these children, the clerk said, yes, they paid for it. The receipt is in your hand. I went to the information desk. I lodged a complaint. Of course, they looked at me like it's another Black woman. It's another, they didn't do anything. I'm sure they were surprised that I was even complaining at all. Now, fast forward 10 years later, we were having a conversation at home and I don't know what I said. They started to laugh. So I said, what's funny? So they told me they had gone out one evening. Now they were graduates. They had finished college and they had gone out with a couple of friends. They were all in the same car, I think about 4 or 5 of them. The police pulled them over, told them to face the car, put their hands on the car, handcuffed them. For what? At the end of the day, after they had done whatever they needed to do, right there on the highway, they told them, oh, we are sorry, we made a mistake and you can go. We were looking for someone and this car, seemed like the car we were looking for. They had pulled guns on these children. So for me, it's a very, very personal thing. So when you ask me, so if any Nigerian or any African out there is saying, oh, you are not one of them, we are one of them. We are Black. Every one of us who is Black is part of them. This discrimination is against everyone who is Black. We need to stand up against this. And when we look at the African American family and we talk about the dysfunction in the families that is affecting the younger ones, you need to understand that between 1980 and now, the prison, the incarceration population has gone from less than 500,000 to over 2 million. And 40% of those people incarcerated are African Americans. Now, when you take, and statistics tell us that 1 in 4 Blacks will have a taste of prison at one point or the other in their life. 25%. So when you take that bulk, and most of them are male, and you take them out of the home, out of society, and you lock them up, how can a family not be dysfunctional? So we are at a crossroads. Thank God for social media. This is nothing new. This has been happening for years, hundreds of years. It's the story of the Black man in America. It's the story of the Black man in many parts of the world. The reason why America is really painful is because America is supposed to be the model of democracy, of civil rights for the whole world, and it is a sham. It's a big sham. Because the truth of it is that even here in America, the color of your skin, to a large extent, still determines how far you can rise. We have outliers, definitely. We have a few outliers that are able to break through. But for the majority, there is a serious problem. I will just stop there because, yeah.
So my follow-up question to that, this is powerful because you are saying that we're no different. We're no different from African Americans, and we're the same when they pull us over. Yeah. They look at our color and they immediately begin to wonder, what have you done? And so it affects all of us. My next question to you would be, how do we begin to learn better about the law and the position that legally we have in order to be able to stand or speak for ourselves or even teach our communities better about our legal rights?
When you talk about legal rights for a Black person, that's why we've continued to have the problem that we have. What does the American Constitution say? It says one thing, and the policies say another. One of the key reasons why a lot of African Americans are in jail is because of the poverty. Because when they are arrested, no matter how minor that offense may be, they can't come up with a bail. If a bail is set at $10,000, $5,000, they don't have that kind of money. Somebody ends up being in jail for more than 2 years for an offense that probably incarceration might not be more than 6 months because they can't come up with a bail. And for more serious offenses, where they are pulled over and it is alleged that they have committed a crime, they can't afford the legal fees. They cannot afford the lawyer. How many of us can afford a good lawyer in this country? Legal fees are high. We went through a process, in my church. I know how much we paid legally for zoning. So when that comes on an individual, if it's a criminal matter, you are talking of thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees. So the reason why many people are in jail, why many Blacks are in jail, is not because they committed an offense. It's because they cannot afford the legal fees. So it's not a question of knowing your rights. You may know your rights. Who pays the legal fees? It's about when you end up in the hands of the police, charged to court. How do you pay your legal fees so that someone is adjudicating your issue and helping you to prove your innocence? So we have people ending up in jail for things like for felonies, because when they are arrested, they are told, okay, because they know they can't afford legal fees anyway. So they are told, okay, let's do a plea bargain. And that person is said, how can I do a plea bargain when I didn't commit any offense? Oh, you don't want to enter into a plea bargain? Okay. You can't afford legal fees. That person ends up going to jail for an offense they probably did not commit. 10, 20, 30 years for rape, for murder, because they cannot afford the legal fees. So I think what we need to do is what everyone is doing now. It is that we need to get up and we need to join and protest. I'm not saying go out in the streets, but what I'm saying is we need to do something, make sure our voices are heard, to stop the injustice that is going on in this country.
My final question.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And I think to caveat to your point, ma'am, is the fact that incarceration is a business in America. Private prisons. So they have to fill those prisons up. So the moment you understand that, understand the ploy of the government to keep those folks that are into private prisonry, so to say, employed, I think the whole thing comes clearer of what crime. Look at police department. If the crime is up, they fund them more. If the crime is down, they defund them. So the system is set up in such a way that is a lose-lose situation. So, and I think a lot of reform is needed in government, but we have to kind of provoke that reform. So, in interest of time, I'll go ahead and ask Pastor Bayo Fadugba to come in now. First thing, I'll just briefly, it's a two-part question, sir. I'm going to ask you, first thing is to ask you about your position on what is going on currently in America and racism in 2020. And more importantly, we will talk in depth about bridging the gap and creating bridges across culture, knowing fully well your church has done they've done some awesome work in breaking cultural barriers. So Pastor Fadugba, what says you?
Thank you so much. I'm just so overwhelmed with all that we've discussed and said today. But let me share my thoughts to start with. You know, I'm going to take us back to scriptures because I see to be able to properly address the foundation of the problem, let's go back to the scriptures in Genesis 45, the story of Joseph that we all know about very well, sold to slavery by his brothers, and the brothers came, to Egypt, and they met him, and they were reunited while they were in Egypt. Now, the first thing I'd like to say, which is so relevant and apt to our conversation today, is that when the brothers of Joseph, when they showed up in Egypt, they did not recognize Joseph. They thought they went back to their father and described this Egyptian, and all that. I believe that the first thing all of us who are African immigrants have to realize is the fact that, number one, no matter how much we try, we can never relate to the pain of the Black American that has gone through generations of slavery. Just like the brothers of Joseph, there's just no way they could relate to the pain of Joseph. The pain he's gone through that has made him become so unrecognizable that they were looking at their own blood brother, they couldn't recognize him. That's the first thing. Number two, for quite a large number of us, because we cannot recognize and see ourselves in them, I'm talking of African immigrants, we call them negative names like Akata. We call them animals. I understand the root meaning of Akata is an animal. We are so condescending in the way we relate to them. When Joseph met his brothers, in the reverse was the case. Joseph, of course, had become big. He had left the prison. It wasn't like, his brothers were princes. They were free men that came to Egypt to shop, came to Egypt, because of cross-posting, and they now met this poor boy in prison, and they were looking down at him. The roles had been reversed. But one thing we can take from that is the fact that I think the first thing is for all of us to acknowledge the fact that we cannot really totally understand the generational pain that the African Americans have gone through that has made them become who they've become. And number two, the Bible tells us in that same Genesis chapter 45 that after Joseph has introduced himself, the Bible said they hugged each other. They wept openly. It wasn't tears of pain at that moment. It was tears of reconciliation. I feel that there must be a sense of responsibility on the part of the African immigrant. Like Nehemiah did, he recognized the sins of his fathers. That was where he started. That was where healing started. And I believe that's where healing will start. At least between us, the African immigrant and the Black American. I think there has to be a reconciliation on both sides. On our part, we should acknowledge the errors of our forefathers that sold their forefathers for a bottle of liquor, bottle of rum, bottle of alcohol, and at times even for a mirror, a piece of mirror. Friends, families, neighbors were sold to slavery. I think at this juncture right here, that condescending attitude has to stop. We should have a sense of guilt and a sense of responsibility that we're a part of the problem. Or should I say our forefathers were a part of the problem. And that we will no longer continue to be part of the problem by calling them animals, by saying to them that they don't have culture. How would they have a culture if everything has been taken away from them? Pastor Gandhi rightly said, when you walk through the projects, a pastor friend was telling me that he drove his father to Third Ward in Houston, that his father was so afraid when he saw the fierce-looking grown men that were sitting, just smoking and doing all sorts of things. He said, his father said, please don't bring me to this place anymore. And they came to their, lush, beautiful American environment that very few of those people in the Third Ward has ever been to. That's the second point for me. Then the third thing we can take away from Genesis 45 story of Joseph and his brothers is the fact that Joseph rehabilitated his brothers. The tide was turned in his favor when he recognized them. He set them up. He used his status, his position to make them comfortable. As a church, we must do much more than pray.
Yeah.
We must do much more than give speeches. We must do much more than hashtagging on social media. As a people, we need to now look at ways to contribute to the well-being of our brothers and our sisters, the African American communities in all the cities where the Redeemed Christian Church of God is located. For us as a local church, we've registered an NGO called YONA. YONA's responsibility would be to work with the prison, and we're partnering with the mayor of Houston, Sylvester Stoner. I've met with him, we've had conversations about this. We're starting an NGO that would help when these young men come out of prison, because there's something called the Halfway House Program. The Halfway House Program is normally used to just, get them to understand, maybe they've been in prison for 30 years, they don't even know how to flush or how to open a door. Now the Halfway House helps, it's like it prepares them to be able to get back into the society. But for us as a church, we're going beyond just, fulfilling the norm, the requirements of the society. No, we're going to use everything within our power in every Redeemed church. In fact, statistics show, let's take Nigeria, because we're talking of African immigrants. An average Nigerian has a master's degree. An average being a doctor is no big deal. Being a professor is one for a dime. But these are things these people have not been exposed to, like Pastor Gandhi said. So for us as a local assembly, we're looking into ways we can use what we take for granted to empower and encourage these young people or middle-aged people, whatever it is. And we have an understanding that, if they give us 100 young black men from prison, maybe some of them they cannot be rehabilitated because they can't just get past the slavery mindset, the negative mindset they've grown up with. And I said to myself, Mayor, the challenge we have is, as a pastor, I preach every Sunday. It's not everybody that hears my message every Sunday that gives their life to Christ and breaks down in conviction. But we keep preaching. So I said, if 10 out of every 100 get rehabilitated, we reposition them to be able to fulfill purpose, find self-worth in being black, in being themselves, pride in being who they are, whether male or female. I said, our job is done. They don't have to come to our church. They don't have to. Of course, in the process of this, we're going to use the scriptures as the basis for us. And I can go on. Our church members, everybody on the line, it's got to start with you. It's got to start with me. Because there's this lie that this problem is too big to be fixed by ordinary people like you and I. It's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. Change can start with you and change can start with me.
Awesome,
It
Pastor.
can start with the way I think, with the way I talk, with the way I act. Change, if all of us on this line alone, if we start a fire and we start a movement, as it were, to change the culture, I believe that it can grow like wildfire, and the number we expect and the number we're looking at, we can get that number that will change policy, that will cause a movement like the death of George Floyd. Somebody said, he said, why are we making George Floyd the focus? This guy is a criminal. He said, oh, George Floyd is, I said, no. George Floyd has become a symbol. It's not a function of whether he has a past. The question is, which one amongst us does not have a past? Let the one that is without sin cast the first stone.
All right, sir.
I have a question.
All right, sir.
Someone just asked.
Go on.
They just asked, how do we rehabilitate the Caucasian people? You know, the focus is on the wrong target. Who is going to rehabilitate the Caucasian people from themselves, from a slave master's mentality? That's where the true pathology lies. Is that something we can do?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I have this formula for life. E represents events. R represents response. O represents outcome. E plus R always produces the O, the outcome, in every situation in life. E are events we don't have control over. An earthquake, the Caucasian mindset, you know, and all that. It's always the R that determines the outcome, the response, and that's what we have control over.
Okay.
Now, the reason why a Caucasian would respect an African immigrant and would immediately, especially those of us that still have accent, immediately they hear your accent, there is a sense of respect that is different from the way they see an African American. It's because a typical African immigrant does not in any way have a slave mindset. Right. I don't see any Caucasian as better than me. Neither do you, and most of us on this line.
Right.
So because I don't see them better than me, whatever problem they have, whether master mindset, house, whatever, it has no effect on me at all. But if we can help the mindset of our brothers and their response to all this evil that is thrown at them, if our response changes, I trust God that the outcome will change. The problem is a whole lot of the African American, the Josephs in America, they are still thinking they are still in jail. They still think they are still in the days of slavery. Joseph showed up in the palace.
What about
he became a prime minister. Now that speaks a lot about his mindset.
What about the Sudanese man that was arrested the other day? He was African American. He was African, and he was arrested falsely by the police. I think something happens when they look at us and they see your.
Did you notice his response?
Right.
His response was not timid.
Right.
His response was not timid.
Let me say this. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Let me say this. And it's one of the things I identified when I first spoke. That education goes a long way to change things. These Nigerians that Pastor Bayo is talking about, our strength in this country, because Nigerians are the highest number of graduates of immigrants. And one of the things that gives us this confidence also is because of our education that has given us exposure, that has made us to know that a white man is not better than us. So how will the white men respond to this? They will only continue to respond to this because of more white men, more black men that they interact with. That's how their mindset is going to be broken. So Obama left, became the president of this country because he was clean. They could not get anything against him. And he was eloquent and educated. So he could match any white man one-on-one with his intelligence, with his behavior, with his appearance and everything. So there is stereotypes and mindsets. How does that change? How do you change a mindset? How do you change a stereotype? It's by adding information to people. What is this information? When they know more that blacks don't behave in a particular way. One of the reasons why most people are incarcerated is also lack of formal education that gets you a decent job. So the more educated they are, the more exposed they are, is the more information. Even what Pastor Fumi said, you understand? A lot of them don't have information. They don't know the options that they have. Their parents don't know. They don't know. So the white man will only change by the time he finds out. And a lot of Nigerians who are my friends, when they work with medical doctors who are pharmacists, those people who work in hospitals and all of those things, white people respect them because they've interacted with them and they find out that they are smart as they are. A lot of African Americans are smart also, but they don't interact with them. And the number one place you interact with people is in the place of work. You don't interact with people in churches because Sunday morning is the most divided day in this country. White people go to their church, black people go to their church. So where do we interact? We interact in the place of work.
Pastor Gandhi, thank you for that awesome contribution. I want to circle back to Pastor Bayo Fadugba, just to complete my set of questions with him. And I really do appreciate your contribution because race relation topics are quite sensitive. And oftentimes the way we kind of shape it can change the way people view certain things. And my heart bleeds for the African-American community because as you mentioned, and I love everything you said because I've written about this severally. The fact of the matter is the names that African-Americans bear doesn't belong to them, was given to them. And oftentimes we kind of forget about it a little bit because this sense of belonging is absent. And beside what yourself and Pastor Gandhi have said, about education has been a difference maker, why the Africans are not intimidated by the white community. And more importantly, there are several factors that surrounds that. And also is the fact that an African knows exactly where he's from. He knows exactly his village, he knows exactly his roots. And that in itself gives him a sense of belonging and a sense of pride. So when you see an African, he works with pride and honor. And that in itself cannot be negotiated. Regardless, nobody else in this world can put you down. And regardless of whatever is going on in the geopolitical dispensation. But I want to circle back into some of the questions I have for you, sir. We'll talk about church and position on marching. I'll talk about protesting. What is your position on that, Pastor Bayo, about the stand of protesting and letting our voices be heard through the issue of should church support the protesting of marching on the street or not, or we should figure out a way to protest differently from marching on the street because those have their own second and third order effect as well.
Thank you so much. Let me just say this. I'm actually supposed to be at the city of Stafford, the mayor's office, protesting right now. I was invited to lead prayer, and I think it's going to continue. I don't know if I'll still be able to make it. So in terms of protesting, in a safe environment, I think it's something we should encourage people to do. I made contact with a member of a church that anytime, the mayor of Houston and some Christian leaders are going to do a peaceful march and protest. Joel Osteen was in one a few days ago. I said, please, let's get everybody, as many people as can, and let's go march in a safe manner where there won't be any shoving, there won't be any looting, there won't be, all sorts of funny people that are picking pockets and all that. Of course, I would say with our face mask. So I would say it's something we should encourage, but please, it should be safe. It should be safely done. And I would also add this caveat. I think it should be done during the day, not at night, because I think it's at night that those
Crooks.
the crooks come out and to take advantage of the message, because and some other, unfortunately, I think that some of the people that are looting were actually sponsored to change the topic, sponsored by all sorts of people. So I that's my answer to the question of protest, please.
So
and quite a large number of people in the African immigrant community have been protesting.
Lovely.
I want to add this one to
Daddy
you.
Fadel wants to say something. Please, let's allow him to speak on the matter of protesting.
All right.
I want to thank God for all my pastors here that have talked about the issue of protesting. Yes, and yes, and yes, we must protest peacefully. And majority of the churches we go to are led by pastors. And we have been conditioned, our mind has been conditioned to follow leaders. If our leaders take position, if our leaders protest peacefully, the members of the church will follow. So I'm speaking to all pastors, I'm speaking to all leaders. When they are protesting peacefully, please join. Because if you don't go, you are sending a message to the other people that are in your church that you shouldn't protest. Protests have a way of bringing an awareness to the people that yes, these injustices can no longer be tolerated. And these things must be fixed, and it must be fixed now. So the mentality of our people that goes to church is that if a pastor does something, that means it's a sign that yes, they can follow. But if I as a pastor refuse to go, they can read the message from my actions that if I don't protest, that means it's okay not to protest. So I will say the only way people can listen right now is by protesting peacefully. Let us go ahead and protest. I totally support it. Thank you.
Awesome,
Pastor Gandhi, you were going to say something?
I wanted to say
Then
something.
please, after Pastor Gandhi, I want to say something.
I
very
want
quickly,
to come back to the main thing I have been saying. Education, 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 which means information, information, information. A lot of people are protesting. They don't even know why they are protesting. So there's no point in protesting when you don't even know what you want to achieve. Also, education, it's important so that they will know that this protest must lead to a policy change. So we're not only in the streets, we know why we're on the streets, and we know what we want to achieve. And the third thing is that all these, we've got to get ourselves educated and go and vote, because this is democracy. They are the people who are going to shape situation. That's why I keep saying that one of the first things that must happen to us as Black people is for us to get educated. And education is not only formal education. I don't want people to misunderstand me. That's why I said it's classified under information, because all of these 2 weeks can be wasted if after this one we do not change people, because that's how this country functions. We do not have lobbyists who are going to change policies. All of these things is going to be wasted, because after all of this noise, everybody goes back home. Then nothing happens. You follow it, and that's why I said that we as pastors have to cast visions for people and follow through for them. That's why I said that earlier on, so that it's not only shouting and that's it, but we've got to let them know protest must lead to policy change, and then it must lead to election.
I think more importantly, Pastor Gandhi, is the fact that we need to push more people into policy making as well, people into the political powers, and people, because we've conquered the economic and academic power in America, but yet the African immigrants are lacking behind in the political structure. And I think that's where the real change actually will come to be. So back to Pastor Bayo Faduba. I want one last question for you. I know you have an additional information to give, but one last question to you, maybe you can just put everything together, is the fact that there are a lot of family hurting at this particular point in time. They don't know how to voice their opinion. And also a lot of youths. I mean, by the time the video came out, I mean, even 6-year-old, 5-year-old, on the internet, and they were watching this, they were just watching a man's life, just gasping away. And, you know, and how do you reconcile this? Because, I mean, they just talk about 5-6-year-old looking at a man just being murdered in front of them on the internet. So how do we reconcile this? Because a lot of our kids are seeing through this, and how do we kind of make sense of it with them? Because imagine if a 5-6-year-old being sheltered in America for the most of his or her life, now seeing somebody's life just taken away, and doesn't know how to express, him or her doesn't know how to express his or her feelings. And also the family as well. A lot of people are hurting. I mean, this thing kind of went deep to a lot of places. And how do we reconcile this and make this happen? So my question is to you, Pastor, is how do we talk to our youth on this? And more importantly, what do we say to families that are hurting at this particular point in time?
Thank you so much. I would make this my final speech, but I'm going to say this. I see a lot of chats. People are saying we should go talk to the white people to change their mind, and all that. Please, may I submit that the little droplets of water that will come from each of us, when put together, can become an ocean that will cause a movement that will produce the policies that we're talking about. It's not going to happen overnight. I think if, like we're having this conversation now, which I don't think we've ever had this kind of conversation before, I think this is a good start. To follow up on this, each of us, we have a responsibility. We have a duty, not just to ourselves, not just to our children, but to the community. Anytime your white colleagues at work, please educate them. Your Hispanic colleagues, educate them. My son that's graduated from Texas A&M went through, Texas A&M, there are lots of, Caucasians there. He went through a whole lot of heart-wrenching experiences. Do you know that this season, a lot of them, some of them, they've called him to apologize for the way they treated him? That, for me, is change right there. So it's got to start with you and I. That's, I need, because I don't want us to be looking at, oh, let's change the nation. We elected a black president, like someone chatted and said, but they screamed at him. They told him in the Senate chamber that has never happened. They said, you lie. Nobody had ever done that to any other president except Obama, just because of this pent up, racist tendencies. So I believe that everything is, if we don't stop and we all take it up as our personal responsibility to change first, and to, of course, and to continue individually, pastors from the pulpit, leaders in every strata of society, and of course, to the question, the conversations about the hurt. Let me say this: it's not only the teenagers that have been hurting. I called a friend, an adult, and I was hearing somebody crying. And he said to me that that's his wife, that each time she just can't bear to see the video of George Floyd, that it breaks her heart. And my wife has told me about other friends that they've been crying because of this. So there's a lot of hurt from teenagers to the adults, everybody. And may I say this, please? It's good to cry. There's nothing wrong in crying. So let us express our emotions and cry. It may actually be part of the healing process we need. But I need all of us to leave this platform with a sense of responsibility, that we will sit down and have conversations with our family members. If you're a parent, have a conversation with your children. It may be a tough conversation to have, but please, we all need to have that conversation to help the healing process. And we need to let them express themselves, and we need to channel the cause of the anger towards righteousness, because love covers all forms of hatred. We need to channel our thoughts, our actions towards love, because the Caucasians, the blacks, God created all of us in his image. God did not give us the capacity to just love the people that look like us alone, including the whites, the white supremacists. We have a responsibility to God to love them. And this we must teach our children. And this we must discuss with our children. And I believe that from the home to the pulpit to every sphere of influence, whether at the gym or at the club, wherever you meet people, we need to have very real conversations and let the love of God permeate our soul. Because if we don't take over the narrative and the conversation, this pent-up anger one day may explode, and you just see blacks shooting Caucasians, where they are predominant blacks. And that's not the direction we want. That's one extreme to another negative extreme. So that would be my answer to the matter of healing. And of course, healing takes time. Thank you so much, Bayo.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. If I'm going to add to what Pastor Faduga has said, once somebody is diagnosed with cancer, one does not simply remain silently hoping that it will slowly disappear. No, everything within your power you will do to get rid of the tumor. So what I will suggest is, number one, as individuals, we must donate money, time, and skills to Black and anti-hate organizations immediately, starting from now. Everything helps, and all hands must be on deck. Number two, sign petitions. Every petition that is getting rid of all this hate, all these, injustices. Do you know that some of our Black people, they are blind black hair, but Black people are not aligned to that business, even though billions of dollars are spent by the Black people? We who have influences in Africa, we must find ways of allowing Black people to come to Africa to buy businesses, and not only buy business, but doing businesses. Do you know Asians help Asians? Chinese help Chinese, Jews help Jews. We must make it our point of duty to be able to help our Black brothers. Sign petitions. Legislating and voting are two things that change history. We have all that it takes to get that done. Pastor Faduga suggested halfway houses in our individual churches. There is something we can do, and the time to do it is now. Thank you.
I think one of the other very critical things that we need to do is we need to begin to encourage our people to become politically active and begin to seek elected positions. We need to encourage, one of the things I've been talking about, there's a program I do every morning. I have said people need to register in both political parties. Whether it's, if a husband is in the Democratic Party, the wife should go and register in the Republican, and the same with the children. Not necessarily because of, whatever, because both of them are the same at the end of the day. There's a party that promotes ungodly values. There's the other party that is racist. So let's be in both political parties. Let's begin to work our way up. Let's go for meetings. Let's participate in primaries. Let's seek elected positions, because that is where that's where the law is going to change. If we are not there, we do not have a voice. So we may have the money, we may be in business and all the rest of it, but we need to seek elected positions. We need to encourage our church members to begin to be politically active. That is where we are going to make the biggest changes, along with all the other things that we said we will do. We have to get involved.
It's true. Without no political liberation, there will be no economic liberation. One wise man said that a long time ago. Over to you, Chichi. As we round up.
Right. We're going to round up, and we're going to give an opportunity for everyone on the panel to say some final words. But a question has been posed in a group chat to ask the chairman, how can we continue to have this conversation? It's a lot of people in the chat have said they love the fact that we've actually come together and allowed our leaders to talk to us about this pain and this hurt, and we're addressing it. How can we continue this conversation, and what are the plans that RCCG-NAO have for the future of this conversation to continue?
Thank you very much. As I've said, we are not the first to come out of the gate, but we have come out. And the discussion should not just end here. Thank God for all the panelists today, Pastor Bilan, Pastor Faduba, and Pastor Gandhi. There are some, what we need to do is bring some youth. Let us hear from the youths, their pains, their solutions. Because if you look at it, our generation, yes, we may feel it a little bit, but we don't feel the impact of this discrimination as the youths. So maybe the next time we are going to meet, if you guys suggest when we shall meet next week, week after the next, we can set up a Zoom conference. We don't even have to talk, but let the youth come together. Let's have our churches have a dialogue in the churches. Let the youths get engaged in the churches. So to continue the dialogue, I'm going to ask my PA, to get some youths together. Next week, we can have another chat like this. And let's continue the dialogue, but we must come up with concrete plans. It's not just having a Zoom conference that, yes, this is what we are going to do, this is what we are going to do. As a church, what am I doing? As individual, as a youth organization, what am I doing? What changes are we making in the individual churches to make sure that the voices of us are heard, and the voices of the Americans are heard, and the white Americans too, that their voices are heard. So the dialogue is not stopping here. We are going to continue.
Someone said chairman for president.
I'm not interested in being president. I'm already a pastor.
Right.
I'm a kingmaker.
All right. Okay, so I have one more question from the crowd, and anyone on the panel can take this question. What part are we part of the problem by bringing the Caucasians to Africa for business validation? In other words, our businesses close faster when we involve a Caucasian man in Africa. This is a question from the crowd. If anyone has any questions, please post them now, because we're getting ready to round up. If you post them, we'll be able to take a few questions, and then Chairman has already agreed that we'll come back next week, but please, what's the age of the youth? We'll come to that question. Anyone on the panel can take, maybe Pastor Gandhi, since you're in the finance, you can take that. Why do we bring the the white man to come and validate our business deals in Africa?
Yeah, because most of the time they have the technical know-how, and over the times, one way or the other, they have shown that they have the technical know-how, they have the knowledge, they behaved ethically, and I don't mean all of them, but ethically, most of the time they have behaved well. And so a lot of people believe that if they bring white people, number one, they will come with their technical know-how, they will come with the knowledge, organizational skills, and it's what is true about it. You understand? They follow through their projects. You understand? And a lot of the times, I'm not saying there are no bad eggs among them, but a lot of the times they keep their word. They understand what contract is. They understand what business is. So a lot of the times, we Africans, we short circuit ourselves. And so we start something, we never finish it. But it's not everyone, but this is what is widely known. That's why when people see people, not only white people, Indians, Chinese, you understand, whatever they say they're going to do, they do it. They commit to it. And we don't commit. We don't commit fully into a lot of the things that we do. So that's why a lot of people are more open to the white people?
Chairman.
You know, the problem is, it's not that there are no Black people who can do the business. It's not that there are no ethically good business Black people. But the reason is, for one reason or the other, we have a mindset that we can't trust them. Because Pastor Foduga alluded, the way we call them names. And when we come here to education, Lord, like Chichi already, told by her parents, don't mix with these people. They are not good. They are going to make you bad egg. For one reason or the other, the distrust among us and the Black Americans is still there. If you are looking for a good business Black man to do business in Nigeria ethically, if you search for it, we can find it. But we don't take the time to look. There are dubious white people in Nigeria that are doing business, that are constructing expressway for 5 years or 20 years, and they don't do it because they are siphoning the money. They are white people. The same thing in this country. What I'm saying is that if you want to do business with Black people, there are mayors we can go to who are Black mayors, governors, and say, hey, this is the kind of business you want to do. Can you find us some Black men who are good business people that can keep their promises? They will give us one. So don't let us rule them out that, yes, because they are Black Americans, they can't do business in Africa. There are a lot of them. I have a network of Black people who want to do business in Nigeria. All we need to do is ask, and they are ready to jump in and do an excellent job. But the issue is we must trust them and give them opportunity. Many of us who have worked I work at Ford Motor Company for about 10 years. It's because somebody looked at me and trust me that I can do a good job, and I did. So every one of us must be able to give chance to other Black Americans. They are good businessmen out there. Yes, they are bad ones. Yes, even among Nigerian businessmen, there are bad ones among them. But let us trust each other and do business with them. And we'll be amazed on how good some of these Black businesses are.
I want to take a question from Fumi Hastrup. Fumi says, can we add anti-racist and anti-bias training, make it a requirement for ordination in the church leadership?
We can make it part of the leadership training, but not for ordination. Okay. And we thank God for, if you attend a class in the RLI called Run Church 1 or 2, some of these issues have been talked about, but not making it a requirement for ordination. Education is important, so let us make sure we educate ourselves. It doesn't have to be through the church. In our personal management leadership training, while I was at Ford as an engineer, as a senior engineer at Ford Motor Company, these are the courses that are required. And you don't complete your courses, your evaluation is going to be affected at the end of the year. We are going to make it mandatory for all our pastors if they are going to take it. But I can't just make that policy change here. I have to discuss it with other senior leaders, senior pastors. But it's essential that this kind of trainings are becoming unnecessary now. And it is necessary we make it mandatory for all pastors to take the training.
I have one more question, or maybe a couple more. Can we set up cells within our church to drive initiatives, this kind of initiative to larger forums, and also set up outreach that targetedly invites the African-American communities to work with us?
Is the question for me or for everybody?
Anyone on the panel can take the question.
Pastor G, Pastor Bilan, they have bigger churches than mine, so they can answer those questions better.
I think one of the things that we can do, and I want to appeal to the younger ones. Like I said to the young people in my church, I've reached my generation, and the younger people need to reach their own generation. I think it's critical for the young people to step up. One of the things that is needful at this time is we need people who grew up in this system, who understand, because our children understand better than we do. You younger people, you understand. You know what you have seen. I have been sheltered, but because you went to school here, because you had to start work, you are not as sheltered as we are. So you have a better understanding. You are the ones that we need now to go out there and sort of integrate all the other cultures in with us, because you speak their language. We don't speak their language. So please step up to the plate. You are supposed to be out there helping, to build this church and take this church to the next level. all the places you all ran away to are not going to help us solve the problem that we have right now. So please come and take the baton and carry this work forward so that we all can complete our assignments. Come and help us to take the church to the next level, please.
I agree. I have one last question I'm going to take, then the panelists can just round up. Can we work with teaching our people or our youth how to handle interaction with the police?
I believe that can be done. There are a lot of resources in our various communities where we can tap into, that they can actually come in and teach us. Where we can actually interact with the police, interact with agencies. I think this can all be done at the local level.
Okay.
I want to make a comment also. Pastor Fadugba shared something very, very insightful with the story of Joseph. But I want to add something to what he said. Joseph, the brothers could not recognize him because he had blended with them in everything. One of the problems of African Americans and people like us in the diaspora is that the brothers couldn't recognize Joseph because he has blended with them. They could not tell him apart from the people. So, can we also allow our children, because what is said is so profound. My generation, who did not grow up here, we never, let's be frank with ourselves, we never encourage our children to mix with African Americans. But the solution is they live here, they have no plans of going back to Nigeria. So, and like Pastor Fumi rightly said, they are the ones who know this culture. We didn't school here. And when she used the word sheltered, it's so appropriate. We have been sheltered because the people we deal with in my generation are still mainly Nigerians. They're the people we have pastored, they're the people. So most of us don't know the culture of African Americans. So until we understand their culture and we don't use one brush to paint them, like Pastor Bayo said, that they are all animals or akata or whatever name we use for them, we will never be able to do that. So we have to change our own mindset also to see ourselves as African Americans and allow our children also to blend with them. So what Pastor Fumi is saying, that they then can take on the baton, can only happen if we allow them to know. Because at home, we make them Nigerians. And they want them to think like Nigeria. If we are not careful, we also will have a whole generation that are confused. They don't know whether they are Nigerians or they are African Americans. So we also have to deliberately encourage them to mix with African Americans, because like Pastor said, they are not all bad. Let them mix with them, know their culture, else they can change them. You can't change people from afar. You can only change them when you integrate with them.
Awesome. Pastor Gandhi question, actually contribution is quite leading because that can go several ways about assimilation into culture of, is Redeemed Christian Church of God culture actually encouraging assimilation, which is going to lead me to my last question with Pastor Fadugba. Pastor Fadugba, we talk about one of the things we didn't mention a lot is multiculturalism, and I know you've done some awesome job over there. How can we encourage Redeemed to kind of, I know Redeemed doesn't have a policy on it, but kind of unwritten rule about, is Pastor Fadugba still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And we have this unwritten rule that we only kind of welcome Nigerians in most of the churches. I might be kind of off field, or I might be kind of wrong on this one, but what I've seen so far, and you've done some work in kind of reaching to different culture. How can we, as a church, continue to kind of open our doors and encourage multiculturalism within our church? I know some people have done it. I encourage it. Every Sunday, you bring somebody that doesn't speak your language and doesn't look like you to your house, can have dinner. and that has been awesome. But are there other methods we can use to encourage multiculturalism? Because in essence, it's also kind of tie into what Pastor Gandhi is saying about assimilation. Because are we really assimilated into American culture? I hope you can. It's kind of a complex two-part question, but I think you'll be able to handle it, sir.
I don't want to interrupt, but there's a sister.
No, go on.
There's a sister there. It's Sister Rose. She has been putting up her hand for a while. She actually called me way before this. She's an African American. I'm not sure if she's still on there, but I see her hand raised. I think she might help us with this point, because this is a sister that came into the Redeemed Christian Church of God and has become very much a part of us. So Sister Rose, I don't know if you are there, but I can see her hand up. I don't know who is operating the screen. If there's somebody there, Sister Rose, if you unmute her, maybe she can talk.
So we are typically allowing the attendees to chat with us. So if there's something she would like to say,
Okay.
she can put it in the chat and we can read it out to everyone. And we're just allowing the panelists and the hosts to speak at this point. Please, if you are raising your hand and there's something you'd like to share with us, please put that in the chat because we're rounding up. We're going to be back next week. If there's anything you missed today, we do have this link available on YouTube. It's going to be posted on the websites and all our social media platforms. So follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Join the conversation, hashtag I can't breathe, and make sure that you update yourself with what's going on here with this chat and with the church as a whole.
As we're waiting on Sister Rose, Pastor Bayo, if I can go ahead and just answer the question so we don't continue to tie people down.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sincerely, I feel quite a large, not like all the pastors on this panel, and there are quite a large number of Redeemed Christian Church of God churches that are pushing towards a multicultural congregation. I just need to put that out there. A whole lot of people are doing a whole lot of things that they are pushing. Now, these things may not show now because, like I tell people, I say you don't dress up for where you are, you dress up for where you're going. If I'm going to the church on Sunday morning and I'm going to preach with a tie and suit, when I wear my tie and suit at home, it may look out of place, but when I get to the church, I would fit my destination. Now, Redeemed Christian Church of God may not look like we're open to multicultural congregation now, but I can assure everyone on the line, and especially the young people, that we're dressing up. We are not yet there at our destination, but I assure you in a very short while, you will see the result. We would get to our destination. A lot of programs are going on in different churches that are affecting opening up communities. A lot of our churches are putting in structures. A lot of our churches have Spanish services. A lot of our churches have, non-Africans in leadership. Now, these are just baby steps, dressing up, or should I say dress rehearsal, for where we're going. When we get there, we would look like the Lakewoods of today. Lakewood's journey didn't start today. They have arrived at their destination. So that's my answer to the first question, because I believe this. Now, maybe there are still maybe a few Redeemed churches that are still closed to communities outside of the Nigerian or should I say African community. Yes, there are still some leaders like that, but I believe with time, they would see the need. It's like a movement. I believe this is the next phase of the Redeemed outreach to the nations of the world. And we're going to get there by God's grace. If you don't mind, I can just give a summary of what I've learned today. Then we can wrap it up with other panelists. For me, I see the need now, from all I've heard today, to start an NGO comprised of legal minds, like to start something like the Innocence Project. Now, the Innocence Project is a group of lawyers that work pro bono to helping indigent people out of incarceration. Maybe they can't pay their bail, or they've already served somebody that was supposed to serve 2 weeks in jail. He's been there for 2 years. You know, they take their cases on pro bono and they help them. I feel this can be an initiative that we can launch in our churches. All we need to do is gather all the lawyers together in our churches, or our friends who are lawyers, and we start a program like this. It's something I think in our local assembly we would start. Number two, I've also learned that there will be a need to start a business club, like an empowerment club. What we thought we had done before was like an investment club. But I think today I am leaving this forum with a burden to start a business club that will change the mindset of people towards business, give information and prepare, give people access to information and data that will make them, become, accomplished business people. And number three, for me, is to start an education fund to reach out to communities that are underprivileged, like the third world, bright students that, we can pay their school fees up to college. And of course, helping parents that are very poor, so that these children can be raised out of their community, and hopefully they will go back and help some other people get out of the cycle of poverty. Thank you so much,
Awesome,
everybody.
so thank you for wrapping up. Sister Rose, is Sister Rose ready?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for letting me have this time. I just want to say, well, I'm just so impressed with Pastor Bayo. Are you here in Dallas?
No, I'm in Houston.
You in Houston? Okay, well,
Yes, ma'am.
I definitely want to work with you. A lot of the things that groups that you're talking about within the African American community, we have them set up. I came to Dallas as a political consultant. I was the person they called in to flip the states from red to blue. And I fell in love with Dallas and I came back here. To tell you exactly, I called Pastor Fumi and I said to her, I said, Reverend Al Sharpton has called for everybody to come in August 28th, to come to Washington, D.C., peaceful march. And one of the things that concerned me was that every time I looked at the protests, I didn't see a African presence. And I've been redeemed for years. I was Pastor Dell's church over there with Pastor Abraham Adeniji in Detroit, Winners Chapel. I come from Pastor Fumi's church, Living Springs. And here in Dallas, I've worked with Sister Anu Olayinka over here at the Victory Center in Dallas. So I've been redeemed for a number of years. I came here to Dallas and now I'm working with the Tory program with Pastor Jakes. So when I was looking at television, I said, you know what? This is an opportunity for African Americans and Africans to come and work together. And I too use the Joseph, we are Joseph. And we need to put whatever has happened in the past. We cannot expect white people to operate outside of racism when we have our own racism within our own race. And I have seen it, and I have experienced it firsthand. I mean, I can remember, and I told Pastor Fumi this a long time ago, driving down the street in my African attire, and I made a wrong turn, and somebody told me to go back to the country I came from. Well, imagine my surprise. So that's how they see us. They don't see somebody, they see Black. They see Black. And then there's a racism in between us, our own, the light skin, the dark skin, we have to come together. So I'm going to get some more information. I'm reaching out to Reverend Al Sharpton's office because he just put this out. I was watching the memorial, and he wants us all to gather in Washington. I think this will be a perfect time for us all to come together. I can tell you that from being around my African brothers and sisters for so many years, over 30 years, trust me, we are very much alike, very much. And you'd be surprised how much we're like. So I think that if we start having a presence, I mean, I think online is great. This forum is great. But we need to start interacting. I mean, if you on this panel and you have never been over an African American person's house for dinner, you can start there. Okay, you can start there. And I mean, there's some things that we just need to work together to change. I'm putting this out there. Pastor Fumi has my phone number. Please, Pastor Bayo, oh my gosh, I can't say enough about you. Man, I'm so proud of you. Please get my number. I would like to connect you to the folks, the African Americans. African Americans have always had their own, even though, you know, there's an underlining community within our community. We have our own businesses. We have our own lawyers that are connected. You know, when our kids are pulled over, even my nephew, if he gets pulled over, he knows to call me. I know who to call in Philadelphia. So that's how we operate. That's how African Americans operate. We have a call list, and we definitely need to share that with you guys, because we firmly believe it's not what you know, it's who you know. And you can be educated as anything. President Obama will tell you that, and they still disrespected him. But it's not what you know, it's who you know. And until we get laws changed federally, statewide, locally, we can't do a thing. And one thing that we have to focus on is getting this administration out and getting control of the judicial system, because they're appointing lifetime appointees in the federal courts. And so that's what our target is, to reclaim Washington, to reclaim the White House and get our nominees in there, because those are lifetime appointments and we don't want them to be handed to racists. So I thank you for your time. Please get my information from Pastor Fumi. I look forward to working with you. Monday, I'm going to be reaching out to Reverend Al Sharpton, and hopefully I'll be able to, I know I'll be able to, Pastor Fumi will tell you, I'm going to get it done.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
We'll be working together, and we need to have visual. Okay, awesome. We need a banner. We need, every time those people on TV, they need to see RCCG.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Pastor Gandhi, your parting shot, sir.
No, like I said, I believe that mindsets have to be changed. You understand? And the way that mindset is going to be changed is for us to try as much as possible to understand how our African Americans, how they are. And also, like I go back to say, that we need to be educated for policies to be changed, for us to even get through the door. You will not get through the door, trust me, if you don't have the basic education. They will not even allow you to sit with them, because you will not be able to understand what they are talking about. I know the lady said that Obama got into, if he was an illiterate, he would never have been a president of this country. If he never went to school, his education helped him to become the president of this country. He went to Harvard. He had what it takes to sit down with them and talk with them intelligently. When you can't talk with them intelligently, you will not even, if you have that chance once, you will not have it again. You will not even be able to get through the door if you are not educated. That's why I keep saying this thing: education, education. You want policy to be changed, you cannot even have an understanding of the policy you want to change without an education. You cannot even know about democracy. A lot of the people out there, a lot of them don't know what they're just rioting. They're just doing all of those things.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
why that is so important, because you will not be able to sit down with them and discuss with them. When you see African Americans that are very intelligent, and when they talk to you about just like the lady spoke now, a lot of the things we don't know. And education is not only going to school. When I keep saying it, it's information.
I completely
you understand? For you to know what to do. We don't know what to do. I'm educated, I have a master's, but in all this social something, I have no knowledge in it. I don't know what to do. I don't know how policies are changed. So that's why I say that the first thing is getting yourself educated, then you know what you are fighting for. So you're not just fighting, you're not just doing all of those things without you having information and education.
Yes, sir. Pastor Bilana. Pastor Bilana.
I want to thank Sister Rose. I think she's going to help us do a little better by the grace of God. But in closing, like I said, we need to go and encourage our people to get into politics, get into all the political parties, Republican, Independent, whatever, Democrat. Where we are now, we don't need to be Democrat or Republican. We just need to be in there. And whichever party we find ourselves, walk towards the top. Let's encourage our children. Let's get them into elected positions. City councilor, mayor. Let's start from somewhere. That is the only way we are going to be able to change the conversation going on in this country. I had a lady who was very passionate, an African American, very passionate about her people. I said, you know what? I said, go into politics. And she went in. She went in. And she's holding a position now, I don't know what it is, because she cared for her people. So we need to be that voice that encourages and push people into what they need to do. We can't continue to make all this noise. We need to be there so that we can get those changes made.
I have a comment from Bola, who says that Pastor Fumi, that she wants to comment on your statement about youths leaving the church. Many did not feel that they were being listened to either at home or in the church. And she sees that RCCG leadership is now being about opening those conversations and setting up a forum like this. And this is a great start. And she's super excited that she can then have a voice. Mike says, great idea putting this platform together. However, I'm truly surprised at some of our speakers, African Americans, are Africans that came to this country unwillingly, went through 400 years of slavery, and the system has been programmed to keep them as slaves. He has 2 master's degrees and faces extreme racism at work. So what's the deal with getting educated? I am educated and still face the hardship. Thank you, Pastor Bayo, for speaking speaking your mind, which allowed him to understand better how to forgive them, because love wins. So those are just some of the comments that we've heard and reactions from, there are many comments. Oh my God, we had over close to 500 people that joined our chat today. And it's good for us to go in to see them. A lot of people want your number, Sister Rose. They want you on the panel next time. Yeah, I can't read all the comments, but we're really—
I want to say something. I want to say something about that person who said he has a master's. You
2
are
masters.
whoever that is. 2
Yes,
masters. You are
Mike
better
has
off.
2 masters.
You have a better chance today than somebody who never went to school. The fact that you can even get on this Zoom is because you are educated. Some people cannot even get on this Zoom. They cannot even have information. They don't have access to information. That's why I say it's the foundation. I am not saying it's everything. It's the starting point. That's the point I made. And I stand by it. And I've led thousands of people in this country. I know what I am saying. You will not even understand the conversation that you're talking about without is the foundation. I am not saying it is everything. Thank you very much. It's not everything, but it's the foundation.
The final spot goes to the chairman. We have to, we've been
Round
there
up.
2 hours. I think chairman has the final say, and after that, we'll close out the forum for today. So chairman, your parting shot, sir.
Yeah, I first of all want to thank everybody. We want to thank the Lord for allowing us to come on this Zoom. for allowing people to know that, yes, we care of what's going on, and that, yes, as Floyd has said, he can't breathe. Many of us who are members of this society, who are in this country, we can't breathe. We can't breathe in the place of work. We can't breathe even in churches. We can't breathe in businesses. I want to thank God for Pastor Bila now, who have, like a grandma, she has spoken eloquently as far as our position is concerned as the leader of the youth. Thank you. Pastor G, thank you very much on the issue of education, businesses, and let's make sure we find a way of getting some of these Black business people to Africa, to Nigeria, so that they can compete at the same level as the white people also. We want to thank God for Pastor Faduba. You know, he's the leader of the youth in Houston, and you are doing a fantastic job with your words. Sister Chichi, Bra Bayo, I call you Pastor Bayo now. Very soon you're doing a pastor. What are the national solutions, Sister Rose? Thank you very, very much. You know, I never knew that you went to Winners Chapel in Detroit, and I'm here in Dallas. You never looked me up. You know, we will talk later. So you are referring to Pastor Fumi, and I'm here in Dallas, and you have not reached back to me. So we find a way to connect. I will get your phone number from Pastor Fumi, and we continue. But on national solutions, quickly, I just want to talk for about 2 minutes. Particularly as a predominantly immigrant community, we must understand that our presence here was largely afforded by the civil rights movement and protests. The Immigration Act of 1965 had the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as its jumping board. Otherwise, many of us who came here to education would have not allowed us to come. So what can we do nationally? Number one, end qualified immunity that protect CAPS from lawsuits that hold them to a different set of standards. There is a bill in the Congress about that now. Call your congressman, call your congresswoman, that we must end the qualified immunity for the police officers. Number two, we must demilitarize the police. They should not have military grade equipment as standard issue to do their jobs. They are killing our people. You don't need a gun to stop somebody. You don't need a gun to ask somebody whether they have their license card validated or not. There needs to be a retraining on engaging suspects and subduing suspects without lethal force, no matter the situation. We saw a video of a man that has been accused of 2 murders, a white man, on a video. And when they arrested him, they bandaged him up, they gave him water to drink, they called ambulance for him. If you were a black man, he would have been dead before even they do anything. So therefore, we must demilitarize the police. Number 3, vote out corrupt local officers. That means we must vote. Black Americans, Nigerians, Africans who are citizens must vote. This includes prosecutors, district attorneys, sheriffs, police officers. A rampant quadro-pro system among the local elected officials, a significant part of errant police officers who are not held accountable. Number 4 now, prosecute erring law enforcement officers. Praying for change in our communities is insufficient. We know how to pray in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, but as Pastor Fumi has said, we must encourage our people to vote. We must encourage our people to run for offices. We must vote for them. And Micah chapter 6 verse 8 said, seek justice, do justice, act justly, love mercy, love kindness, walk humbly with your God. Why? It is what God requires of you, because he has told you and shown you what is good. Thank you very, very much for everybody on this panel today. As I've said, next week, we are inviting the youths. They are going to be the main speaker, and I'm going to join. I'm going to listen. I don't have answer to everything, but we want the youth to lead. And God bless you. We appreciate you. It is well with you all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Bayo, any final remarks?
No, thank you so much for everyone coming. It's been a very enriching session, and I wish you all the best as we continue to fight, and also as we fight for injustice and equality in America. And I wish everyone should teach one, everyone should reach one, teach one, and hopefully through all that we can be one. Thank you all. Over to you.
I would like to thank everyone, Pastor James Fadell, Special Assistant to the General Overseer, RCCG North America operations. I'd like to thank Pastor Gandhi, from regional pastor, senior pastor of RCCG Jesus House in DC. I'd like to thank Pastor Mrs. Flumio Bilana, regional pastor and senior pastor of RCCG Living Spring, and Pastor Bayo Faduba, provisional pastor and senior pastor of RCCG Dominion Chapel in Houston, Texas. We have heard from our chairman that we need to demilitarize the police, sign petitions, prosecute law enforcement, vote. We have so much work to do as a team, but we'll keep doing it together as we continue the conversation. Please follow RCCGNAO online on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media platforms so that you can get updates. Convention is coming June 18th and 19th, and we are having confirmed our one and very only African-American pastor, an amazing man of God who will give us so much that we are missing in sometimes within just our home and our communities. We're going to hear from a great man of God, Pastor T.D. Jake. So don't forget 18th and 19th, June 18th and 19th, the RCCG convention will be going live. You can get all that information if you follow us on all our social media sites. How can the youth join the call? We'll make sure you get the email for it. Thank you so much, everyone that's joined the call. God bless you. Have a fantastic weekend, and let us continue to breathe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you next week.
Please breathe.
Amen.
God bless you. Thank you. Rabayo. Thank you.